All right, welcome back. We are ACI course 13, class 7 already. It's July 2nd, 2026, where I am. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom, and see them there with you. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them, the beautiful golden glow encompassing us in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try to help fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about emptiness and karma, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that strong intention, we turn our minds back to our precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please, please teach me that, show me that. Help me become that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the pure world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, four lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratnam Mandalakam Niryatayam. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community through the merit that I do in sharing this class on the earth. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings totally awaken for the benefit of every single other. Okay. This class 7 is a long one as well. So I'm going to do the quiz old-fashioned fast way, which is just parrot it from the answer key. So we learned last class about negatives and positives. And of the two, learning about negatives is the more useful for our effort to reach the direct perception of emptiness. And so we focused mainly on the negative things, and we learned that there are two kinds of negative things. Things that are negative in the sense of not being something, the Mayengak, and things that are negative in the sense of being an absence of something, a Megak. And the example of things that are negative in the sense of being absences of something is empty space or emptiness. And an example of something that are things that are negative in the sense of not being something, like not being something else, is, for instance, the fact that sound is changing. The fact that sound is changing, there isn't anything in there that says anything negative, anything about an absence, but it implies that sound is not unchanging because we say the fact that sound is changing. So that phrase, the fact that sound is changing, implies it not being something else, which is not unchanging. Which seems silly, but if we believe there's something about sound that is unchanging, then it might be pertinent to go through these repeated examples of sound, whether it's changing or unchanging, and the significance of recognizing the fact that sound is changing says something important about sound's nature, which is that it is not unchanging, in case we thought it was. So then the quiz asks for a general description of a thing that is negative in the sense of not being something. And we just gave an example, the fact that sound is changing. But here it's referring to that example we had in the class, which was that chubby guy who doesn't eat during the day. So that phrase, the chubby guy that doesn't eat during the day, there is a negative in that statement. We're saying he doesn't eat during the day. But then the fact that we've noted that he's chubby then confers the idea that there's something else that we're talking about here, rather than just the fact that he doesn't eat during the day. So a negative where the wording used to express it implies something else, either another negative or something positive. In this case, it's something positive. If he doesn't eat during the day and he is overweight, he must be eating at night, or he's sick in some way. Those are both positive things. Third quiz, give a typical example of a logical statement which includes a correct reason that utilizes a nature. So remember, we were studying correct reasons where the three relationships hold, and then we're learning about the different factors or different clues in choosing a reason that makes it a reason that will be a correct reason for the argument that we give. And we learned one of those correct reasons was having to do with the reason being the result of something that the cause is saying. The second one was this reason by way of a nature, a correct reason by way of utilizing a nature. And for this example, we used, again, our friend sound. Consider sound. It's a changing thing because it is a thing which is made. And our reason, a thing which is made, is a reason by way of a nature, because the reason, being a made thing, is the same quality as being a changing thing. So the nature of the thing given as the reason is the same nature as the thing given as the assertion. And so because we've matched the reason's nature with the assertion's nature correctly, that makes our reason a correct reason by way of nature. The example here is that our reason, because sound is a thing which is made, the quality that's telling us about is the nature of being a made thing. And our assertion is that sound is a changing thing. And the nature of being a changing thing is that it also must be a made thing. So because the nature of a made thing and the nature of a changing thing are the same, that shows us that our reason is a correct reason by way of its nature. Meaning that's how we chose our reason. Is we thought, well, can I prove my assertion about sound being a changing thing by being able to reveal its nature as a changing thing by saying it in another way? And that can become my reason. To be a made thing is automatically to be a changing thing. And so therefore, our reason is a correct reason by way of a nature. But we don't actually know if it's a correct reason until we do the check. 1 and 3, does that work? If 3 then 2, does that work? Then not 2, not 3, does that work? If we have our reason correct according to a nature, and that reason applies to our subject, then our statements will all hold. So that's how we figure out how to build a correct syllogism versus just randomly try them on for size, right? There's a reasoning that we can use. All right. So for class 7, Geshe-la reminded us that there are a few different reasons why we're studying Buddhist logic. One is to keep Buddhism alive in the world so it doesn't degenerate. Second is to show our minds that we don't really perceive things in the way they really are. And third, to bring us to the direct perception of how those things really are. Meaning that sequence of seeing the seeds ripen and shortly afterwards experiencing the emptiness directly of ourselves and all those things. So studying logic helps us to read and understand the middle way scriptures more clearly and to be able to recognize accurate teachings on emptiness versus inaccurate teachings on emptiness. And it's helpful, even necessary, they say, to learn how to think clearly about the things we hear people tell us so that we can judge for ourselves how to use that information, whether to use it, and then how to use it. So Geshe-la was reminding his group that we're deeply into studying logic right now. And it's not likely that we're going to come back to it. So work with it now, he was saying to them. Don't put it off till later, because it isn't the kind of thing for most of us that we're chomping at the bit to get back to and dig into. So he was encouraging people to make the effort now, so I'm just passing that along. He told us this story of that old Geshe at the Howell monastery, the Howell temple, and he's on his deathbed and Geshe-la's going to visit him. And the guy's reading a Dura text, a logic text, the one that the kids study, the 11-year-olds. And Geshe-la said, "You're dying. Why are you spending your time reading a kid's textbook?" And the guy said, "This is most important for studying middle way. And I want to be ready for in my next life." So no doubt he knew that what's on his mind at the moment of death is going to be what happens. And my guess is he's wanting logic to be on his mind. Now, whether it will by the time you get to that moment of death, I don't know. But Geshe-la likes that story to impress upon us that sometimes the beginner's texts are maybe more useful than the really sophisticated ones. So this class is the topic called Contradictions and Relationships. So again, in these classes, we're learning the information base that we use then to explore the syllogisms in proofs of dependent origination and emptiness. And it helps us think more clearly whenever anyone, including ourselves, is using logic to get us to make some kind of decision. And when we understand how to listen to what they're saying, to identify what's the topic, what's their assertion, what's their reason, and then run our minds through those three relationships, we can clarify whether their reasoning is correct reasoning or not. Then whether we decide to agree with them or not, that's up to us. And more important than doing that for reasonings that other people give us to do things, it's our own reasonings that we use for getting ourselves to do things, where it's more pertinent to actually apply our clear thinking because most of the time we're operating under automatic pilot that's being driven by feelings. And when we have our feelings and our logical thinking together, man, it won't even be a decision to be made. It's just clear. That's what we want to carry out. So contradictions and relationships is this exploration of things to look for in our reasoning. And let me get to my screen share. So the term for this topic is Galendral. It looks like it's spelled like this, but the prenasal is that apostrophe. Galendral. Gal means contradiction. The undral is relationship. So we're talking about contradictions and relationships, but we can also think of it as contradictions in relationships. Like, what's the relationship between two things that reveals whether there's a relationship or whether that relationship is contradictory such that there can't be a relationship. So that's what we're going to be exploring. Geshe-la said the topic is especially important for understanding emptiness and dependent origination, like the relationship between those two topics. We're learning how to consider objects to see whether they are contradictory or do they share a relationship. It's going to help us when we are looking at a logical statement so that we can make the assessment. 1 and 3, does that hold? If 3, then 2, does that hold? If not 2, then not 3, does that hold? This is more information. So let's talk about the gals first, contradictions. The full word for contradiction is galwa. When we are talking about galwa contradictions, we have to be talking about two different things and how comparing these two different things. You can't talk about contradiction and only be talking about one thing. So Galwa requires that there are two things that we're talking about. And we're looking to see if those two things are in contradiction to each other. So by definition, for contradiction to be happening, those two things need to be distinct from each other, and they need to be existing. So this first thing to know about Gyawa, contradictions, is the two things we're talking about must be tade. Tade means separate, which implies that there are two things that must be separate, distinct, existing things. We can't be talking about two things that are actually the same thing. We can't be saying oh, let's talk about Geshe Michael and Geshe Lobsang Chinsum. Are they contradictory or not? Because that's two different ways to label the thing Geshe Michael. We wouldn't look for a relationship of contradiction between Sarani and David's wife or Mrs. David Stump, because that's just two different ways to refer to the same thing. But we can say, let's look and see if there's a contradiction between Sarani and this pen. Like, who cares about that? But just as an example, Sarani and this pen are two separate and existing things. Remember what school we're in. Logic school, functioning things have some reality of their own. They are not self-existent, for crying out loud. Nothing is. They are things that exist, independence upon their causes, their conditions, a little higher school and their parts. And so being functioning things, here we are, the pen and me, two separate things. So now we can have a comparison. If I said, can we check for contradiction between Sarani and the horns on the head of a rabbit? Are those two separate things? You can say yes, because Sarani is referring to this, and horns on the head of a rabbit would be referring to this little rabbit that has a horn. But in our world, there's no such thing. So technically, although we have these two different concepts, one of them doesn't exist. And you can't have a relationship, whether it's any kind, between one thing that exists and another thing that is a non-existent thing. So in order to go looking for a relationship of contradiction, we first must establish, are those two things separate things, and are they both existing things? And usually the minute we hear, consider this and this, our minds, bing, bing, separate or not, and existing or not. So we don't have to sit down and go 1, 3, not yes, 3, yes, 2, not 2, because we just automatically know. But sometimes it's tricky and it takes a little bit of checking. So condition number 1, for things to be in contradiction, they must be tade, separate things that are both existing. Secondly, they must be shitun mepa. Shitun mepa, shitun, she means foundation, tun means harmony. Harmony foundation, which doesn't mean anything in English. Geshe says the scholars translate it as common locus, which also doesn't mean anything in English to me. And I appreciate him so much. He says, Shitun Mepa means one thing which is both things. When you have one thing that is both, you have this thing called Shitun Mepa. One thing which is both A and B. Like me, when I said, think of Sarani and Mrs. David Stump, we've got two different concepts, but me is both of them. Me is Sarani and me is Mrs. Stump. So the me is the common locus. The common theme between Sarani and David's wife is me. Right. So anyway, for just for example purposes of this concept, shitun, sorry. Shitumepa means there is no such common locus. There is nothing that is A and B. When we are looking for a relationship between two things to see if they are contradictory, we must find the fact that they are two separate things, they are two existing things, and there is no third thing that is both of them. Because if there's a third thing that is both of them, then those two cannot be contradictory, can they? Because there's something common to both of them. So we need to first establish these two, it seems like three conditions. We're looking at two separate things, two existing separate things, and recognize that there's no other third thing that can be both of them. So once we have that, then we can look for the contradiction. And there are two kinds of contradictions. There's Pensen Pangya and Lenshik Minengel. I'll get there later. Pensen Pangya. Pensen means mutually. Pang is that word to eliminate. Pangel. So Pensen Pangel means a mutually eliminate contradiction, meaning a contradiction revealed because the two things are mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive means if you've got one, you can't have the other, or vice versa. They actually have kind of a connotation of the two things are there, and then because of this mutual contradiction, mutually eliminative contradiction, boom, one pushes the other one out. I don't think it so much happens like that in our experience, but their example is classic one from Tibet is crows and owls apparently have this mutually exclusive relationship. Like if by some miracle the two are standing on a branch together, they just look at each other and one of them has to go away. The crow will chase the owl away, or vice versa, because Geshe-la says this town ain't big enough for the two of us, from the old westerns. In our own minds, we're thinking of or perceiving these two objects, and then something about our recognition of them makes it such that, well, that one can't be if this one is. Sometimes that relationship is one way, sometimes it's both way. In a contradiction, a mutually exclusive contradiction, of course, it's still the case that no one thing can be both. So the example that they give, they say a changing thing is mutually exclusive with or to an unchanging thing. You can't have a changing thing and an unchanging thing together. Meaning you can't have one thing that is both a changing thing and an unchanging thing. And it's like, wait a minute. Don't we have every every appearing thing that's also empty. So it's like these are little clues that we are exploring our human reality. And then we're going to use those explorations to dig in deeper into our understanding of this marriage of karma and emptiness, because it will help us understand that better. In a mutually exclusive relationship, another example they give is, are red and blue contradictory? We can have the American flag as red, white, and blue, but can something be all red and all blue at the same time? No, of course not. So they do share a relationship of contradiction. And in this case, it is a mutually exclusive contradiction in the sense that if the thing is all red, that automatically excludes that the thing could be all blue or all green or all yellow or all anything else, because we've established it as all red. When there is a mutually exclusive relationship, it means that when we are perceiving one of them, that perception automatically excludes the perceiving of the other. When we perceive the flag as all red, that automatically excludes that the flag is blue or anything else. Their classical example is our friend Bumpa, the water pitcher, and everything that is not a water pitcher. That water pitcher, what is the relationship between water pitcher and everything that is not a water pitcher? When we perceive a water pitcher, do we perceive something directly, or do we perceive it through the mutually exclusive contradiction of it not being anything else? And it seems weird. It's like, no, I see the water pitcher there. And they explain, well, when you are seeing a water pitcher, in order to see a water pitcher, our mind actually has to have already excluded everything that's not a water pitcher, so that all that's left is water pitcher. And that's a deep clue, actually. So water pitcher and everything that is not a water pitcher, those are opposites, are they not? And there's no one thing that is both a water pitcher and in the category of everything that's not a water pitcher, right? Because if there was, they wouldn't be in a contradictory relationship, water pitchers and all that is not water pitchers. Another example is heat and cold, hotness and coldness. No one object can be both heat itself and cold itself at the same time. Are we always at some level of heat and some level of coldness? Yes, that's what temperature is. But can we be heat And can we be cold at the same time? Can there be a thing called heat and a thing called cold there at the same moment in the same place? No. And there are many other objects in the universe which are neither one, which is a critical piece to be able to recognize that heat and cold are mutually exclusive. All right, there are 3 examples of mutually exclusive relationships. Takpa, me takpa. Go down, you. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. Look this way. There we go. 3 kinds of mutually exclusive relationships. Takpa, me takpa, takpa nupo, and nupo nume. Hypo. Nupo nume. We recognize some of these words, I hope. Takpa, me takpa. Takpa means unchanging. Me takpa means not unchanging, so therefore changing. So if I say, consider takpa, think of unchanging things, what is it that we have to automatically eliminate in order to know what we mean by unchanging thing? Our mind automatically thinks of the opposite, checks to see if that's what we're talking about, says no, and eliminates them. When I say think unchanging things, our mind has to directly eliminate all changing things, because unchanging things and changing things are opposites. They are a direct mutual exclusion. You don't have to figure something out to come up to that idea. If takpa means changing and me takpa means unchanging, those are opposites, mutually exclusive. Got there directly. Takpa nupo. If we compare takpa, unchanging, an unchanging thing, and nupo, a thing which is made, a working thing, we have what's called an indirect mutual exclusion, because we have to think about it to recognize that there's a mutual exclusion going on here. We think about takpa. Takpa means an unchanging thing. We think about nupo. Nupo means a thing that's made or a working thing. Anything that's a working thing, a made thing, has to be a changing thing. Changing things are opposites to unchanging things. So therefore, that functioning thing, working thing, is an opposite of an unchanging thing. I just didn't get it directly. I had to think about what I know about nupos, produced things, to come to the conclusion that they are eliminated by talking about unchanging things. The 3rd example of mutually exclusive is nupo and nume. Nupo means working thing, produced thing. Nume means a non-working thing. We're using nume instead of takpa. A non-working thing, but an existing non-working thing. Because I already said You can't have any kind of relationship with the horns on the head of a rabbit. And that's not a working thing because it's not a thing at all. So nume means a thing, which does no work. So is this example between a thing that does do work, a thing, a produced thing, and nume, an existing thing that doesn't work? Whoops, sorry. Is that a direct mutual exclusion, or is that one that takes some thinking? It takes some thinking for me because I have to go, what's nume and what's po? But once we've established nupo as working thing and nume as non-working thing, those are direct opposites, right? Just by the very words. And so we have a direct mutual exclusion. They say the clue is when we are using synonyms to show the relationship, then the synonyms reveal an indirect exclusion relationship because we have different mental images for the two different words that come to the same conclusion. But because our dinchi for each word, like takpa and nupo, are different mental images, and we find what that reveals in order to determine whether the relationship is contradictory or not. That's what makes an indirect mutual exclusion versus a direct. In the direct, the words themselves reveal that those two are opposites. And when that's true, we have a direct mutual exclusion. Then the second kind of contradictory relationship. No, yes, no. Yes, the second kind of contradictory relationship is lenchik minengel. Lenchik minengel. It means this. Lenchik means to stay together. Mine means cannot. And the ngel is contradictory. And you know what? I gave you the example of the owl and the crow on the branch together as the mutually exclusive. And I was mistaken there. The owl and the crow on the same branch is this example of Glenchik Minengel. It means a contradiction where two things are diametrically opposed. So mutually exclusive and diametrically opposed are two different ideas. Mutually exclusive, if one's there, the other one can't be, because they're opposites. Diametrically opposed means they just can't stay together. And we'll see why if I do my job here. A contradiction where two things are diametrically opposed. You know how when you take two magnets, and if you have the North Pole and the South Pole, they go. But if you have the North Pole and the North Pole and you try to push them together, they won't go together. It's more that idea here, the diametrically opposed kind of contradiction. So they conflict in such a way that one of them works to eliminate the other. In changing and unchanging, an unchanging thing doesn't have to do anything for us to know changing things are not present. Changing things don't have to do anything for us to come to know that unchanging is not what's appearing to me. It just happened. With Lenchik Minengel, we see that there's something happening between these two ideas, these two things, not in the thing itself, except for the crow and the owl, but in our understanding. We're looking to see what kind of relationship do these two things have. And we come to see that if one is there, it's got to push away the other. Because again, there's no one thing that is both of them. And we have these two separate things that are two separate existing things. And we're checking to see what their relationship is. So the scriptural example of two things being diametrically opposed is Nyempo and Pangja. Here, Nyempo Pangja. Nyempo is the word for an antidote, meaning the counter agent that we apply to fix something. Excuse me. And Pangja means a negative personal quality. So meaning some quality that we want to eliminate in ourselves, some mental affliction or some negative habit. We find a nyempo, an antidote for it. And when we apply the antidote, that antidote, doing the antidote, pushes out the negative quality. You can't be acting from the negative quality if we're applying the antidote and acting from the antidote anyway, or instead, because that's what an antidote is. We could say it's the opposite. My anger's coming up and I'm going to say something kind as an antidote to my anger, that as long as I'm saying something kind, I can't at the same time be experiencing my anger. The saying something kind has pushed the anger out. Maybe as soon as I stop saying something kind, the anger comes rushing right back. But I can't have both of them going on in my mind at the same time. That's a diametrically opposed relationship example. The antidotes, the classical ones, are the meditations that they give us to do if we've got a particular problem. They say if our problem is laziness, they assign us the death and the end of death awareness meditation to inspire us to practice. If ignorant desire for things and others is our problem, they assign us that practice where you see your whole world rot and decay and then bring it all back. And you do that often enough so that this thing that you're desiring, you recognize, it's just rotten yuck anyway. I don't really want it anymore. While we're doing the meditation on everything rotten and decayed, we're not having lust for the object. We're having aversion. But as soon as we stop doing that meditation, very well possible that the lust will come back. But eventually, we're able to get over the pangja by applying the nyempo. The point is, you can't have them both in your experience going on at the same time. to have an antidote going on in my experience, I can't have my pungja going on at the same time. The pungja is why I'm doing the antidote. As soon as I stop the antidote, maybe the pungja will come back, maybe not, but they can't be in the same experience because of this mutually diametrically opposed relationship. I chose my antidote as the diametrically opposed thing to what I want to get rid of. So therefore, when I'm focused on it, I can't have the other. Like the owl and the crow on the same branch. Get out, owl. And they push him away. So in these two kinds of contradictory relationships, mutually exclusive and the other one, diametrically opposed. The mutually exclusive contradiction relationship is what they call the real contradiction. The one that happens directly, like at the moment. Whereas this diametrically opposed relationship of contradiction, that generally happens over time. We have to recognize that the antidote and the thing I'm trying to antidote can't be in my same mind at the same time, but I have to cultivate one to overcome the other. I have to do something for the diametrically opposed relationship to actually have its effect. Whereas the mutually exclusive, it's like instant. So they call it direct versus indirect, in the same way that we talked about the escaping my mind already. The first kind of contradiction that we talked about being direct, the words are opposites or the words are synonyms and we have to figure it out. They are both useful. Uh, okay. In our efforts to apply our antidotes to our negative habits, our panjas, as we go deeper, the negative personal quality that we really want to antidote is our ignorance. And we understand that its antidote is emptiness. And it makes a nice investigatory debate when one takes the position, oh, let's call emptiness the antidote to ignorance, my pungja, and show how that emptiness and ignorance is a diametrically opposed, contradictory relationship. And see if someone can prove that that's not correct. Or we could do it the other way and say, look, ignorance and emptiness are actually indirect mutually exclusive. Right? You can't be aware of emptiness and have any ignorance. And if we have any ignorance, we don't have awareness of emptiness. So you could make a case that those two, their relationship is an indirect mutually exclusive. I have to think about it, but I can get there. And then you could even go so far as to say, no, they are absolutely direct, mutually exclusive. And the exploration is really helpful. Whereas our linear mind says, why bother to investigate all three of those when only one of them can be correct? But it's not really true that only one of them can be correct because it depends on our level of understanding and our level of understanding the meaning of the words and our experience with emptiness versus ignorance versus dependent origination versus just experiencing our world the way we do. So all three of those investigations of the relationship between ignorance and emptiness can be really useful to show that they have all three of those kinds of relationships. But ultimately speaking, ignorance and emptiness, instant mutually exclusive, one or the other. All right. Let's take our break. Are we back? Anyone? On her way to work. I got two, a heart, I got a thumbs up. Okay, we'll go. So Geshe-la says, in Drebung Monastery's Se Dura, that's the one we're studying from, it goes on to divide these contradictions, which are diametrically opposed, the Lenshik Minengel, into direct and indirect, which kind of implies that other monasteries don't do that. The Mayingak that we were learning to recognize before. They give two examples. They say, let's take light and darkness. When we turn on a light, there's a process of the light encountering the darkness and dispelling it. And they say this is an example of a direct, diametrically opposed contradiction relationship, as opposed to a mutually exclusive relationship contradiction due to the sense of needing to turn on the light for the light to dispel darkness. Something had to happen for the contradictory relationship to happen. Another example, hot touch sensation and cold sensation. That's the one I said before. They say if you are cold and you turn on a source of heat, the increasing heat acts to dispel our coldness over time in a process. Another example of mutually exclusive but indirect because it takes time. Then an indirect, diametrically opposed relationship. They say, suppose there are huge clouds of smoke in a certain place, and maybe there's a sensation of coldness in that place. So suppose you have a snowy barbecue pit, and then you build a fire in the snowy barbecue pit. They say this is an indirect, diametrically opposed contradiction because we had to build the fire, but as soon as there is fire, there can't be cold there, at least not the cold that it was before. So they say, even if you aren't the one building the fire, you just see billows of smoke there. The billows of smoke tells you there's a fire, and that tells you that there can't be cold there. There where the fire is, it can't be cold, even if everywhere surrounding it, there's snow everywhere. You had to think it through in order to recognize diametrically opposed fire and cold, the cold of snowy stuff. Once we know that fire is there, we know that coldness cannot be there. They say everything that exists must eventually be involved in a contradiction. He said, for me to see my arm the way that I do excludes that I see it in any other way. To see my hand in the way that I do excludes that I see it in any other way than that. That's a relationship of contradiction. It implies that I couldn't see it any other way. Which also can be a contradiction. So that's one of those places where he says, cook it, right? Every one of those cook it is a little clue in this course that park it somewhere, because in your ongoing personal practice, it's gonna come up. Oh, that's what they were talking about. Oh, right. We're planting seeds with those clues. So they're good ones to chew on over a cup of tea. So now let's go on to, we were doing relation, are things contradictory or do they have relationships? So I've been saying they have a relationship of contradiction. Now we're talking about, do they have a relationship? And there are two kinds of relationships that any two existing separate things can have. One is dakchiki drelwa. So drelwa here is that term for relationship. Dakchik means oneself. But this is not saying a thing has relationship with itself. This is saying we're checking for a relationship of identity. So dakchik also means identity, which seems different than to say myself or oneself or the pen's self. But then when we think of it that way, it's like, oh, no, of course, it's the pen's identity, because we don't think of the pen as having a self. The pen doesn't have consciousness, but ignorant me does believe it has its own identity. That's its dakchik. But I have dakchik too, even though I'm a conscious being and I do have a self. So dakchik means kind of the same thing, but it has a different connotation in a non-conscious thing versus a supposedly conscious thing. Dakchiki drama. So this is a kind of relationship where to be one thing is to automatically be the other, a relationship of identity. To be one is to be the other. It can be a one-way relationship and be a relationship of identity, or it can be a two-way relationship of identity. It does not have to be a two-way relationship. So we've been talking about this for a while now, about these relationships of identities. An example is a changing thing and a thing which is made. This is a relationship of identity, because to be a made thing is to automatically be a changing thing. And it's actually a two-way relationship of identity, because to be a changing thing is also to be a made thing. So we could say, okay, well, changing thing and made things, those are synonyms. So maybe synonyms reveal two-way relationships of identity. But then relationship of identity can also be one way. Like our familiar example, consider motor vehicles and Chevrolets. This is a one-way relationship of identity, because to be a Chevrolet is to automatically be a motor vehicle, but not all motor vehicles are Chevrolets. To be a motor vehicle is not to automatically be a Chevrolet. So there's not the relationship of identity motor vehicle to Chevrolet, but there is the relationship of identity Chevrolet to motor vehicle, if I have that going the right direction. Now, apparently, when these descriptions are written in Tibetan, Geshe-la says it gets particularly complicated for the English translator because of the syntax of the sentence. To be able to determine what's the one-way relationship that's being talked about, you have to know, which of where the word order in relation to the reasoning, how the word order relates to this. Tibetan syntax, we know the phrase goes subject, object, verb. In English, we go subject, verb, object. I go to the store. In Tibetan, they do subject, object, verb. I store, go. In which case, we need to know if we're looking for this relationship of identity. Are we talking about my relationship to the store or the store's relationship to me? Like in this example, we're not looking at that kind of relationship, but just to get the idea of the word placement. He says in Tibetan, the first object being mentioned is the thing that we're relating to. And the second object is the thing that is being related to. So when I would say that Chevy, I'm confusing myself here, so help me if you can. The Chevy has a one-way relationship with motor vehicles because all Chevys are motor vehicles. And the Tibetans were trying to say that. They would say, Chevy car, dangdakchik, meaning dangdakchik means have this relationship of being dakchik, one thing. It's not one thing, but they have a relationship. Whereas if you said motor vehicle Chevy dong dakchik, you would be wrong. So I'm not dealing with Tibetan. But if you are, then careful in the reading to be able to follow which thing are we comparing to the other. The first word is the one we're looking for what kind of relationship it has with the second word. They gave another example having to do with the contradictions, however. They said, if a phrase in Tibetan says, Yupa mitakpa dangyal, I didn't write that. Yupa means being an existing thing, and mitakpa is changing thing. Dangyal means contradictory. It's saying being all existing things is contradictory to being a changing thing. Yupa, all existing things. Mitakpa dangyal. Being an existing thing is contradictory to being a changing thing. Because being an existing thing is bigger than being a changing thing, right? All existing thing includes unchanging thing. So it's contradictory to say that all existing things and changing things are the same thing. So we're saying they are in contradiction. But if you reversed it and said mitakpa yupa dangyo, you would be saying being a changing thing is contradictory to all existing things, in the sense that if you had a changing thing, you couldn't have all existing things. And it's like, well, that's not true, because being a changing thing is part of the category of all existing things. And it just seems backwards in the word order from what we're used to. It says too, when we're doing these reasonings for ourselves, to check how our words are phrased, to make sure that we ourselves aren't understanding it one way, but that somebody else, even another English speaker reader, might interpret the word order differently. Like last night in Bokjimpa class, we were reading these verses that had no punctuation. And if you put different punctuation in at different places, it revealed a different meaning to the verse. Not that one was right and one that's wrong, but just really opened up the scripture for us just by changing whether there was a period or a comma or none. Helped us understand better. So similar with our logical statement. So when we're looking for these relationships of identity, we're looking at the two different things by way of this set and subset, which is similar to when we were first talking about chi and chedak. It's helpful to train ourselves to think in that way, even though it's not really so useful in terms of the chi chedak practice. So Geshe-la said this other thing that has kind of haunted me. He says, if a subset includes both changing and unchanging things, then the subset itself is considered unchanging. He rewords that and says, like if we're stating a fact, a general truth, the fact that sounds are changing is an unchanging thing, because it includes both changing and unchanging. It has to always be the case. And I've been still cooking those words for a long time. There's something important in there. When we establish a fact, we have established an unchanging thing. And that means anything about that fact is always true. And that makes it unchanging. Does that mean sounds, because they're always changing, they are therefore unchanging? No, it can't mean that, because sounds change. But there's something important about the unchanging fact that they are always changing, to be able to wrap our minds around those two contradictory concepts at the same time. Something important about that. So they go on to give an example where to be one thing is to automatically be the other. And that classical example is water pitcher, our friend the water pitcher, and and the reverse of all that's not the water pitcher. Bumpa, bumpe, dokpa. Dokpa means the reverse of all, that it's not. This just seems so complicated, but it's important in terms of learning more about perception theory, which is also learning logic. An example of one thing which is automatically the other is water pitcher, and the reverse of all that is not water pitcher. So let's use pen instead of water pitcher. Here's our friend the pen. Our friend the pen is automatically that which is the opposite of all that is not the pen. Is that correct? Think of everything that's not this pen. Reverse it. What's left? Pen. The pen, and the opposite of what's all not pen is this pen. Same way of referring to this object. Oh, pen. Oh, the opposite of all that it's not. We've heard Geshe-la say that. Something about someone visiting him at the train station. So the implication of that has to do with perception, and I'm going to draw it. So according to logic school, perception theory, they say that when we perceive an object, we don't actually perceive the object, directly by way if it's outline or by way of, can I say what's there? So my example is we're seeing a heart. They say technically we don't see a heart directly. That actually what we've done to get to this is this. You've seen me do this before. What I'm trying to show is that we're eliminating all that's not that figure in order to arrive at the figure. So imagine that my black squiggle covers everything that you can see. And so when we look at it, all we actually see is the heart. And they say we never actually see this directly. Same for the pen. To come up with pen, our mind has instantly eliminated all that's not it, and this is what's left, like this. So they have a relationship of identity because doing this is what has revealed the identity. Geshe-la says sometimes they believe that recognizing that we don't see the object this way, that we see it that way, is what's meant by the emptiness of the object, the emptiness of this. And he says that's not the kind of emptiness that will affect our minds such that we'll be able to go on to stop suffering. To think of this revealing the emptiness of this by way of seeing how we arrive at it by excluding other things. these things do have a relationship, because to be the heart is to be the opposite of all that's not it. But when we say, well, is it a two-way relationship? If I take away the opposite of all that it's not, does it take away the heart? And we think, yeah, it should. But then they say, well, actually, when you eliminate all that's not this, it doesn't have much juice in it. Can you see it? No. I'll do it this way. If I eliminate all that the heart was not, sorry. What do we get? The squiggle is there. And then the outline is there. So we can't say that heart and the opposite, that all is not heart, and then the opposite of all that's not heart are talking about this. And so this kind of relationship is only a one-way relationship, because we keep eliminating stuff that's not the thing we're talking about. And what we find is the thing we're talking about, but we didn't get there directly. We got there by eliminating stuff. And that's what brings the object's identity, is by eliminating everything that's not it. So somehow, according to this school, this, by elimination, is how we're arriving at things as identities. And so there is a relationship between eliminating all that's not it and the it that we come up with. Okay? Yeah. So this example of the relationship of water pitcher and the reverse of all a water pitcher is not as being a relationship of identity. It's one way and not two way. And you come out the same, the object is there, but the process of the perception is different. And going through this explanation with ourselves will help us get to emptiness directly sooner or later. This, whatever I was trying to describe with that. All right, second kind of relationship of identity is Dejung Gidrawe, which is Dejung means came from it, the relationship of the thing and the thing which it came from, the thing from which it came, to be more proper English. So technically, this is a relationship of cause and effect, but more precisely worded, it's the relationship of the effect, the thing, and the cause from which it came. And this relationship can only be a one-way relationship, because the cause for a thing is not the cause for the thing until the thing is there. A cause can't be the cause for the effect until the effect has happened. The effect is not the effect unless the cause has happened. So even when we say, well, once the effect has happened, the cause is not there anymore, we can still say, because the result is there, the effect, the cause had to have done its job. But when it's still the cause for the result, it has not done its job yet. Its job is to be the cause. So it isn't actually the cause until it's done its job, and then it's no longer present as the cause, but its job has happened. Right? One of Arya Nagarjuna's favorite things to explore is this relationship between effects and the causes from which they came. There has to be a relationship between a result and the cause from which it came. But there cannot be a relationship between the cause that hasn't yet made a result, because it hasn't happened yet, and maybe it won't ever, in which case it's never a cause and there's never a relationship. So only a one-way relationship between the result and the cause from which it came. That precise wording is necessary. Their example, classical example, is a working thing in the moment after it and the original working thing. That's this phrase, Nunpo Chilok Junwa. Nupoi is a working thing. Chilok means to flip over, into Sujungwa, the moment after. So a working thing in the second moment shares a relationship with the working thing of the first moment. But the working thing of the first moment does not share a relationship at all with the working thing of the second moment, because it hasn't happened yet. There's a third, there are three criterias, not third, three criterias for a relationship of identity. We are almost done. Well, kind of. Dakni Chikpa, Tade, and Chudde Me Na Kumigu. Three criteria to recognize a relationship of identity. Daknik Chikpa means to be one thing is to automatically be the other thing, which means they are the same thing. But this can't be the only criteria, because if it was, we wouldn't have a relationship at all. We'd be talking about a single thing, not separate thing. But when we have these other two criteria, to be a relationship of identity, it must also be the case that to be one is to automatically be the other, like Chevy and motor vehicle. Second criteria, Tade, they must be separate things, separate existing things, separate conceptually. If they're not separate conceptually, and to be one thing is to be the other, we're only looking at one thing. There need to be two different things there. Then, chude me na yumi gu means, chude me na means if it ceases to be, q me gu, this ceases. If that ceases to be, this ceases to be. So if they are in a relationship of identity where to be one thing is to automatically be the other, if one of them disappears, ceases, then the other one must also disappear. Which is why when we say Sevi has a one-way relationship of identity with motor vehicles, but motor vehicles does not have a that-way relationship with Chevys, because if we eliminate all motor vehicles, Chevys all go away. But if we eliminate all Chevys, all motor vehicles don't go away. Only a one-way relationship. One-way relationship of identity, not two-way. To be a Chevy is to be a motor vehicle. They are two separate things. Motor vehicle, Chevy. And if you get rid of all Chevys, if you get rid of all motor vehicles, you get rid of all Chevys, but not the other way around. Okay. Next, last class, we were talking about reasons and what makes a correct reason. We've talked about 3 kinds of correct reasons. A correct reason by way of, I can't remember. A correct reason by way of cause effect, a correct reason by way of nature, and then the third is this correct reason by way of revealing an absence, by way of an absence. Ben was talking about it in his class recently. A correct reason that shows neither is true in a given proof. Mamik betayandak. A correct reason that shows an absence. When they try to describe that to us, they say minangwa mamik betayandak. Minangwa means abstruse or hidden, difficult to perceive. So there are 2 kinds of reasons to reveal an absence. One is a correct reason that reveals an absence that's hard to perceive. And the other is a correct reason that reveals an absence that can be perceived. Like, why do you have to reveal an absence of something that can be perceived? We'll see why, I think. And then a correct reason to show the absence of something that's hard to perceive. Yeah, there's an important piece. How do we do that? What are we even talking about to prove an absence of something? Ultimately, anytime we're talking about absences, we're talking about the absence of self-nature. That's not there anyway, so why is it so hard to see? Because I see it everywhere. I believe that it's everywhere. Everything I experience and me have this self-nature that actually is absent. And it's really hard to perceive, even though all of it is all around us, like the clear diamond, right? So although this all sounds like just playing with words, all of it is planting seeds to help us better understand this explanation that we're going to tell ourselves again and again and again, to help us understand our own no self nature without going off that cliff of, then I don't exist at all, or not being able to go off the cliff of, yes, I do so exist. Right? So I'll see if I can help here. So we're looking for a correct reason for proving the absence of something which is difficult to perceive. In the answer key, they say difficult for the other person to perceive. Like, technically, who cares about the other person? It's me that wants to be able to perceive these absences better. Yes, someday. I'll use it to help somebody else, but I need to use it on me first. The example they give is trying to prove or confirm to a non-Buddhist that hungry ghosts exist. Like, how do we prove that a hungry ghost can exist that we don't see, we probably can't see as humans, but we can prove exists even though we and the other person can't perceive them? Well, first of all, why would you bother for a non-Buddhist unless they've asked about it? But what about for our own self? Is it critical that we prove to ourselves the existence of hungry ghosts? You know, in one way, if we say, I want to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings, and we don't even know hungry ghosts exist, then we've got a big hole in our all sentient beings that we're working for. And then on another level, when we understand about what makes a person perceive themselves as a hungry ghost, which has to do with stinginess and pride, we then recognize that there's this whole category of beings who need help because they can't get their needs met. And it gives us more practice material. And then also, if we show ourselves that, egads, that could be me, because I have stinginess and pride, it will spur my purification practice and my change my behaviors practice, just out of sheer avoidance, not because Buddha said, you be stingy, you're going to become a hungry ghost. But I figured it out myself. Oh, even if I believe once human, always human, there are many humans that can't get their needs met. And I don't want to be one of those, because that would slow me on my practice. So there is usefulness to prove the absence of something, the presence of an absence, the presence of something we can't perceive. Geshe-la gave this example. He said, consider this person before me. I cannot say that they are not a Buddha because I have not yet had a valid perception about it. Consider this person before me. I cannot say that they are not a Buddha because I have not had a valid perception about it. So let's just check it before I even go on in my note. 1 and 3. If 3, then 2. If not 2, then not 3. Consider this person before me. I've not had a valid perception about them. Wait, they're standing there before me. I am not crazy high, etc. Aren't I having a valid perception? Doesn't that mean we throw this whole syllogism out because I am having a valid perception? Ouch. I don't know where else to go. This is what Geshe-la gave us. He says, no, actually, you are not having a valid perception because what you are having a valid perception of is their body. You're not having a valid perception of their mind. We're not having any perception of their mind. Wait, no, I see them as a conscious being. Yes, you see their body as conscious, but you are not experiencing their mind. So it's not that we're having an invalid perception, it's that we're having no perception at all. Interesting. So, okay, if I say, all right, 1 and 3 goes, if it's true that I've not had a valid perception of them, then is it also true that I cannot say they're not a Buddha? Yes. And if I cannot not say they are a Buddha, if I negate that, doesn't that mean I would be saying I am seeing them as a Buddha? Then would that necessarily negate the fact that I've not had a valid perception of them? Yes, it would, because I'd be having that perception of them as a Buddha now. So we would say then that I just revealed to myself that it is true that I don't know whether they are a Buddha or not. That's revealing this thing that I can't perceive, that I thought I was perceiving that they were not a Buddha by seeing them as human. And we just showed ourselves that, no, I'm seeing their body validly, but I'm not seeing them. I'm not seeing their mind validly. I'm not seeing it at all. We are seeing that we are missing something, coming to know that we are perceiving an absence when there is something there. We just can't see it. So Geshe-la says, this is why we study these kinds of reasons. And this is why in our very first class, we learned about negative reasons to study logic, because Buddha said, if you are me or someone like me, you can judge another, meaning you'll judge someone accurately. But if you are not like me, you mustn't judge another or you will fall, meaning many, many eons in a hell realm. He says, don't do it. Don't make that mistake. Don't think we know another's mind or motivation just because we see them do stuff. And he says, we remain properly skeptical towards what we do perceive. So we stop assuming things illogically about others. And we use logic to prove our own lack of correct perception. So ultimately, what we're using is all of this logic to prove to ourselves that we can't get it right. I just think that's the funniest thing. Use logic to prove stuff, and what you prove is you can't ever prove anything about what I see. All right, there's a second reason to prove an absence of something, and this is this last one, Nang Mamit Betayandak. Nangrung means apparent. A correct reason to prove the absence of something which we can perceive. This just seems so silly to me, but there's something important. Consider the top of this pen. There is no Chevy there. Why do I say that? Because there's no motor vehicle there. Like, that's silly. I don't need to go through a syllogism to prove that I don't see a Chevrolet on top of the pen because there's no motor vehicle there. There just isn't either of those two there. But we would need to have a reason which proves the absence of something that's easy to perceive. There is a purpose to that. And that's another one that Geshe said. Cook it. All right, we managed. Class 7 with 5 minutes to go. That's a record. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help. We learned stuff that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hand. Recall your own precious holy beings. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them. Your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into our heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever, and so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the true ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom, and may it be so. Okay. Any questions, needs, comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's up? I can tell something's on your mind. Help me.
These meditations. All right. So this one, think of someone who irritates you. No problem.
Right?
Make up a complete logical statements that have 3 parts and 3 relationships to prove to yourself that you cannot really know they have a certain good quality or not.
Okay.
And then they have, oh, did you lose me? You lost
No,
me.
you're frozen, but I can hear you. Oh, now I can't.
They have an example in the notes. You can use the
Okay.
following format to review the class lesson. I don't know if this has to do with that meditation.
Right.
Attacker, there are no different types of contradictions. Defender, that's not correct. Are you telling me there are divisions of contradictions? Yes, show me then. Mutually exclusive contradictions and diametrically opposed contradictions. Are you telling me those are the 2 contradictions? Yes. So if you take the person you're irritated with, and then you got the 3 parts and the 3 relationships, but it's because of Arya Nagarjuna, I'm taking this from the higher middle way school. I don't think that's what they want us to do here.
No, no, it isn't.
So when
It
I did
isn't.
it,
Not until we get good.
did I lose
Okay.
you again?
It's going in and out. Maybe turn off your video and then your voice will be okay.
Did I lose you?
Yeah.
In my example, it was, my supervisor does not know what I do. Is that correct? Are you telling me they see what I do? Yes. Show me. You see them seeing you is based on you seeing or not seeing others in the past. Are you telling me I only see my past deeds? That's right. So that's like a higher middle way of doing it. I don't think that's what they want in this.
It's not what they want in learning how to do it, because if we're talking from a state of mind that is believing that functional things are there with their own reality. If we're when we're already at the point where we know the punchline so well, it's we'll still use these same logics in this more sophisticated way to show ourselves how we're still holding to something as in it from it, even as we are believing we understand that it's all our seeds.
But in this case, they want us to hold to that. In this case, I just let my supervisor not see what I do, and I go through the three parts and the three relationships.
Right.
Don't get into that. I really think that person comes from their own side. Just leave that alone for now.
Leave that alone for now. Right. Make it the real supervisor who's a
Oh,
jerk that
okay.
really pisses you off, and find why they piss you off. And
Okay.
then show yourself whether that can be truly the reason you're pissed off, and come to go, oh no, I'm mistaken. And then do your Nagarjuna level one and see where it takes you. And that's fine to sit down and do it on paper, not sitting in your meditation cushion. That still qualifies in my
The 15
opinion.
minutes a day
Yeah,
for meditation.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Do it as
Well, I mean, I gotta
concentration.
work on this. I kind of gave up the first time around, but
Yeah.
I
Try
took a
again.
stab and I realized it was wrong, so I'll take another stab at it.
Yeah, yeah. It's about exploring, exploring, exploring more than did I get it right or did I get it wrong. Just keep exploring the principles, and then, right, the syllogisms we try to come up with, and recognize how slippery it is to get a really good syllogism. And it helps us recognize how slippery it is to get a really good, clear perception of what's going on and why I react to it the way that I do, which is
I
really
think
what
for
this is about.
Yeah, I think for now I'm just trying to learn the structure, not how good it is, but my
Yeah.
structure. I'm so emotional. I never really came from this from a logical point of view.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, thank you.
And to get to balance the both of them, it will be a real gift. Because most
Um,
people that come from the logic side, they don't have the feeling side. To
um,
have the feeling side and then to recognize that you can logic through it, it will be a great, great
I mean,
team.
my Neilama Lama has warned me that a lot of my likes and dislikes and my feelings are coming from my past seeds. They're not real.
No,
My
they are real
feelings.
because they're coming from your past
Oh,
seeds.
okay.
They are real. They are
Well,
seeds ripening,
he
and they're
suggests
real.
I analyze what's important, and I think he's got a point there.
Right. We need to learn how to analyze in order to analyze what's important.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing now.
Yeah, but my feelings tend to be like dislike, not what's important.
Well, but even that, it's like, dislike. That is what's important, because when we're doing it ignorantly, it fouls us up. When we're doing it wisely, that's that's progress.
I don't know how much, I mean, you had said to me already, if I really want to help people, I might want to have a life where I could have more time to practice. So you stated to me what's important. So if I go to like and dislike and I don't take the time for what's important, it's a crazy way to live. Just nuts. So I already know what's important because someone told me, but I'm stuck on all these emotional things like reading the news and, you know, having talk about useless things. It's kind of frightening actually.
Okay, you know what to do. Good. See you later. Have a nice weekend, right? I won't see you until, oh, it'll be a while. Have a nice weekend. Oh, we have a class on Sunday. I take it back. We have a class on Sunday and then Geshe Michael start. I think I lost you. All right, I'm stopping the recording. I'm saying good night.